we need to know how to talk about nutrition, because what's the main reason people say they tried being vegan but they stopped? They felt weak. They lost too much weight. Obviously, in our movement, in the plant-based world, there's more than enough information about how to be healthy. But for a lot of people out there, especially dudes, they don't really care about that. They want to be strong.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan from Ethics Fitness, and this is Season 3 of the Ethics Approach podcast, the podcast where we highlight incredible vegan athletes, nutritionists, and other influential and inspiring vegans in the community and find out what they do to absolutely kill it on a plant-based diet. If you haven't already, please give us a follow anywhere you're listening to this, and feel free to check out the other content I'm producing on ethicsfitness.com, including the ethics coaching services, merch, articles, free training programs, and YouTube videos. Also, feel free to check out my personal fitness Instagram at TofuStrong for more podcast updates and additional content. Creating content like this is a huge passion of mine, and I greatly appreciate any support along those lines. All of my links will be in the description, and thank you so incredibly much for all of the continued love and support. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Daniel Austin, aka the Vegan Meathead. Daniel is a competitive 75 kg and 83 kg powerlifter who holds multiple drug-tested state records and competes along with the PlantBuilt team, the world's largest international all-vegan athletic team, as a member of their powerlifting sub-team. Daniel has over a decade of experience competing in powerlifting, as well as over 20 competitions to date. His best lifts in competition so far are a 469-pound squat, 315-pound bench press, and 518-pound deadlift for a 1302 total in the 83 kg class at a body weight of 175 pounds. One of Daniel's driving factors behind his powerlifting endeavors is an expression of advocacy for a vegan lifestyle and to show others that it's possible to perform at a high level on a fully plant-based diet. Daniel is clearly fond of imparting his wisdom to others as well. He previously authored his book, The Way of the Vegan Meathead, which covers all about nutrition and diet strategies for getting strong and jacked on a plant-based diet. He recently also just dropped the audiobook version of his book, so make sure to go check that out on Audible and at his website, veganmeathead.com. Daniel shares a ton of informative tidbits from the book and about his own personal journey from going from a skinny kid to getting strong completely on a plant-based diet. And I think you'll find this episode chock full of super useful knowledge that you could also use yourself. Thanks again to Daniel for coming on, and without further ado, on with the show. What's up, guys? This is Ryan with the Ethics Approach podcast, and we are just starting season 3 here. Daniel here hit me up, and he was like, dude, like, you want to get something going? I'm like, hell yeah, man. So this is season 3. I'm super stoked about this. So Daniel, thanks man for coming on today.
Yeah, of course, dude. Glad you're doing this.
Yeah, dude, me too.
In general, not just talking to me, but like the thing you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I need a little like incentive to like get this fired up this new season, because I did a couple before. I have like, I don't know, maybe 26 episodes, and life comes and then you get too busy, and then I needed like a little incentive, so I do appreciate you reaching out, and I'm stoked to hear about you and your book and everything, man.
Cool, thanks.
So first of all, I guess if you want to do a quick little introduction about yourself, just like your name, kind of like where you're from, what you do, just almost like an elevator pitch, just to start things off.
All right. Well, my name's Daniel Austin. I am now 41 years old. I was born and raised in Texas. I recently moved to Virginia. I went vegan when I was 22, almost 23, and back in 2005. So, this coming year will be 20 years vegan. I didn't really start training in any kind of fashion until probably about 6 years into being vegan. I graduated in high school. I weighed like 130 pounds. I was a pescatarian back then. Mm-hmm. It took me another good 5 years to finally commit to being a vegan. And when I did that, I had no concept whatsoever of nutrition. I didn't know what a macro was. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that protein mattered. I didn't know that calories mattered. I was a fairly athletic kid, not like very specific to anything. I mean, for example, when I was young, I played baseball, soccer, little league football, basketball, And then I realized when I got into music in my later teens that, you know, I'm 5'7" and I'm not very big, and even though I am athletic, I'm not going to be a basketball player, which was my favorite sport, you know. Like my hero growing up was Michael Jordan, but then I realized, oh, I'm like a foot short. so you know, I'm 5'7". I started competing in powerlifting when it was 2015. So it was 10 years into being vegan. You know, so for the last 10 years straight, I've been competing 1 to 3 times a year. For the most part, you know, progression isn't linear always, but for the most part, I'm getting better and better. But now that I'm in my 40s, I'm starting to hit some joint pains and aches that I didn't have before, and recovery's getting a little harder. And I guess we could talk about that. But to become strong as a 135 pound vegan who's just naturally skinny, and I used to be like really fast, but to put muscle on my frame, I really had to figure out how to eat like a freakish amount of protein and dial in calories and learn about macro balances. And so yeah, to do that, I just got really nerdy about the nutrition aspect, you know, from a layman's perspective. You know, I don't have any kind of background in nutritional science. I have obviously consulted with nutritionists to help explain the concepts in my book, so that I'm not giving horrible advice to people, you know, because I can give you my anecdotal experience, and that's what the way of the vegan meathead is. It's, hey, this is what I've done. This is how I got from 0 to where I am now. And I think a lot of it is based on nutrition principles that are verified by studies and such. But as we know, the nerdier we get about studying nutrition for whatever goal, you could find a study to kind of support anything. So for me, it's all about what's tried and true for me. And I always tell people, for what I've done to become, you know, today I weigh like 178 pounds. I'm going to be competing next month with the PlantBuilt team in New Jersey. I'm going to weigh in the 181 weight class, which I don't usually do. I've done it a couple times before. But yeah, I've usually been a 165 guy. And putting up, you know, 12 to 1,300 pound totals, you know, in that kind of range in the last 5 years, competing nationally. One time I went to Ireland, did an international championship. So, you know, especially in the last 5 or so years, I've invested in making sure I can show up for these high profile meets to represent vegans and for the animals, and show, hey, we can compete on the highest level, the highest drug tested level, and the playing field is leveled versus us and the omnivores, you know? And
dude, I love that.
Yeah, and it's gone well, you know? So, yeah, I'm at a point where I've got 4 standing state records in Texas that I set before I moved. I've got 3 standing state records in Virginia since I've moved here in the last 6 months. And I have 2 standing state records in Tennessee when I lived there for like 2 years.
Are those all in the 165 weight class?
Yeah, everything is in the 165 because I haven't done many meets in the 181.
Yeah, first off, man, I can really relate there. As somebody who grew up like super skinny, I mean, you're 5'7". I was pretty much fully grown height wise in high school, like 6 feet tall, and dude, I was like soaking wet my sophomore year, 145 pounds. Like, I was super skinny. So like, I had that same kind of mentality where it was like, dude, I gotta figure out how to put on muscle. And I just felt like, I mean, I'm sure you could relate, like that term, like whether, you know, you go by this term or not, but it's like that hard gainer term. It's like, I felt like I just struggled to gain weight, and I couldn't figure out why. And I feel like I was the same way as you. I turned to like the evidence and like the science out there, and, you know, also took what I could with, you know, like for anecdotes and stuff, anecdotal evidence. But like back then, you could probably relate here too. It was like bodybuilding.com forums.
Totally.
And that's where I got my info, and it was all like, yo, do this bro split and like take this mass gainer. And it's like, yeah, I did it, but like I gained weight and it just wasn't great results. Like, I feel like I got kind of fat, and What was your experience with all that?
Well, getting fat's an important part of the process, you know?
Yeah. I got fat.
Yeah. But that's good though. Like, I felt like I was a hard gainer also. For one, I didn't know anything about proper programming to train. Mm-hmm. That was one reason I wasn't making any gains, because when I was 19, I went to my friend's garage to bench press. We lifted the same amount of weight, like did the same kind of rep schemes and weight on the bar because you didn't have that much weight. We did the same thing all the time. We'd get a pump or whatever, but we didn't just bench pressing and incline pressing and then doing bar curls. I mean, like, how big are you going to get if you're not engaging all the major muscle groups of the body, right? All we did was upper body stuff when we were young, you know? So,
yeah.
But the hard gainer thing, and this is where I've had some people criticize my book about how much fat I eat, about how much protein I eat. And for me, I had to really overshoot these things, especially as a vegan. So I always say, look, this is my blueprint. It's what's worked for me to move the dial. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I wasn't paying attention to these numbers, I wasn't moving the dial at all. When I was being a little too safe about eating this much calories or this much protein, I wasn't moving the dial. For me, mm-hmm. I had to eat over 30% of total daily calories from fat to start moving the dial.
Just, is that mainly just to get enough calories?
I think it's mostly a calorie thing. It's just easier to get calories from fat, you know, because it's 9 calories per gram versus 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate and protein. And, you know, nobody told me that. Yeah. Like, what, you know, I didn't really know that many fitness people, and I especially didn't know powerlifters. And the first real influence or inspiration I had to try bodybuilding as a vegan, which is what I tried out originally, was Robert Cheek's original book, Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness. Yeah. That came out in like 2010, you know. Mm-hmm. So I got that, and then when I quit touring so much, I would go home and I started investing in trying to bodybuild, not like to be competitive, but just to build myself.
Yeah, right.
And what happened was I just started eating everything in sight. Didn't really worry about the macro balance so much. Maybe I'd make a protein target. Like, say if I weighed 130 pounds back then, I'd try to eat 150 grams a day or something. But I didn't ever ask myself, what other calories are in this food? Like, I would just eat vegan mac and cheese all the time. You know, because I have a pretty good recipe for that I would just like make a thing, it'd last all week. You know, or I'd eat bean and rice burritos all the time. And I'm thinking, okay, here's 9 grams of protein here or whatever. But, you know, most of those calories are coming from carbohydrates. And I did get fluffier eating like that. One thing that did help is when I started nerding out in the bodybuilding forums and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, because I did bulk up to like 186 pounds. So I lived in Philly for a year. And
that's my home city.
Oh, word. Yeah, I worked in Sweat Fitness.
Oh yeah.
They had, you know, they're like a local chain. They had like 5 or 6 locations.
I think they're still around.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they were all right. You know, I was a trainer and a membership sales, and I had keys to like 4 or 5 of those. And so I was a personal trainer. This is before I got into powerlifting, you know. Mm-hmm. But I'd wear a big shirt, and everybody thought I was huge, you know. They're like, yeah, we're trying to get big like you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not looking so great under this anymore. But I was getting stronger, but I wasn't efficient in dialing in. You know, like you don't want to eat too many calories because then it's just all fat. You want to eat the right amount of calories and get the right amount of protein from that. And when I came home to Texas from Philly, and everybody's like, damn, dude, you gained like 30 pounds. But because also, you know, Philly, like I was eating at Royal Tavern and Khyber Pass because they were down the street from I was eating at Blackbird Pizza and Mao's Falafel. Like they were down the street from the locations I worked. I was eating this food, like eating out all the time. Mm-hmm. I had no dietary discipline whatsoever. So I gained weight. I got stronger while I was there. And then I realized, I want to do this powerlifting thing a couple years later. And it's like, I need to pick a weight class to be competitive. And that's when I realized, I'm not because I think I got up to 186 pounds while I lived in Philly, right? And but I realized where my squat, bench, and deadlift were at the time. I thought, well, I'm not going to be competitive as a 181, and I would still have to lose weight to be one. I need to get down to 165.
Yeah.
So I spent like a good most of a year nerding out, trying to figure out how to keep protein up and how to minimize carbohydrates and get the fat dialed in right. And from like late 2014 until summer 2015, I got down to 161 and overall got stronger. So that's when I realized I was onto something, and people were asking me how I did that. And that's kind of what prompted me to write my first edition of my book, The Way of the Vegan Meathead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were some of the personal strategies that you incorporated in the book? Like, I know you kind of mentioned, like, it sounds like you started to figure out how much you needed to eat to gain weight, but you sort of were just eating out a lot and just kind of like shoveling in calories, right? How did you dial in that specific number that you feel like you needed to get, like, you know, leaner and also maximize your potential? And how did you translate that into this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. For one, eating all the carbs under the sun, it's a lot of fiber, and I was the kind of guy whose ass was always sweating because I always had to go take a dump. Like when I was eating like I used to eat when I lived in Philly, you know, like it was like 7 times a day because I was eating so much and so much.
And a ton of fiber.
Yeah, and so you can't live like that, really. It's
yeah.
So what happened was when I increased the fat calories intentionally. And what I was learning from all the bro science on those bodybuilding boards and stuff, it's like you got to eat over like 30% fat from your daily calories.
Really pouring olive oil on stuff?
Well, no, just kind of cooking with coconut oil for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there's something I guess I would like to get in later as a caveat to that is over time that's presented some issues in my blood work that I've had to address. Like it's not because my book is written. The last time it was published was 2 years ago. Like that's not, I mean, I'm 41 now, so I'm finding out new things all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Like the river looks the same, but it's not the same water in the river that's flowing right before you. You know what I mean? So,
Gotcha.
So what I'm finding out is from eating high fat for a really long time. And I think this is consistent with what we see in people like Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw and Hafthor Bjornsson and the people that, if you watch documentaries about strongmen, you know, they all eat, obviously not vegan, but very high fat diets. And they might be eating 7,000 to 12,000 calories a day. You know, they weigh like 400 pounds, but their nutritionists are like, this isn't a health diet. This is a diet to be as strong as you can be. And the strategy for these guys is to, by their mid 40s, get out of training and eating this way. Otherwise they're going to kill themselves from,
for sure.
From heart disease. And obviously, we're at much less risk for that if we're vegan because you're not getting the dietary cholesterol attached to the food. So it's less likely to drive your cholesterol up, especially your LDL. But with age, I don't have like in the red LDL cholesterol, but it's gone up. And I've been eating a high-fat diet for like 10 years. So what I'm learning is instead of cooking with the oil so much now, I'm just air frying more.
Gotcha.
But I still think it's important to keep your fat target for strength, for hormonal balance, at least 20% of your total daily calories, you know?
So let's get a little more specific with the book here. So you wrote the Way of the Vegan Meathead years ago now, right? And you made your last change 2 years ago?
Yeah, first edition was 2018. So I wrote it like 2016, 2017. It finally came out in early 2018. And then I updated it. Second edition came out in 2022. It's much better. I can't believe like the first one was just like.
Like you said, you learn more with age. You implement things. And,
the information was good enough and it helped enough people that I was still encouraged. The book did very well, and so I kept going with it. And I'm much more proud of the second edition. And the second edition is the one that just came out as an audiobook this month in September 2024.
Right, like just a couple weeks ago at this point, right? So for anybody who isn't familiar with the book, obviously we touched a lot about like nutrition and kind of like bulking up. Would you say that's the main premise of the book? Like kind of gaining weight and getting stronger on a plant-based diet through nutrition?
For me personally, and the perspective I'm writing for is to get the right kind of macro balance and the protein and the calories met for your specific weight class. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to be a target weight, like here's how we dial that in. That's how I do that. I do give some tips for bulking, which I think now that I've figured out how to bulk for myself, it's much easier to bulk than it is to diet. Because dieting takes so much more discipline, right?
Yeah, sure.
Especially as I get older, it's easier to gain weight. Like in the last 2 years, I actually added an intermittently fasted schedule, like a variation to my meal plan in the second edition, because that was the timing stuff was the only way that I could stay at 165 and eat the same calories as like 5 or 6 years ago. Like it's actually
Is that because
hard.
of an appetite thing?
No. Well, I mean, you obviously my appetite has changed as I've acclimated to the timing, but no, I would love to eat all the time. and I got to a point where I had to realize, it's diet. If you're trying to maintain weight or if you're trying to cut a little bit to make weight class, I mean, you got to diet very specifically so you don't lose weight too fast, because when you lose weight too fast, you lose strength.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So that is one of the things that I've tackled in my book that I think makes it kind of unique, is that I'm talking very much about that transformative diet I had when I got into powerlifting, when I needed to lose like 20 pounds and get stronger, which I did. And that's kind of a sweet spot that people have a hard time with. So
definitely.
The high protein and the high fat really helped with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your book, do you write it in the context of calorie counting or not calorie counting? Like, is it more like intuitive, kind of based on a certain strategy, or is it using, like calorie tracking apps and such?
I break it down like hour by hour how I've eaten, right? And then I speculate how this would play out for people of different weight ranges than me.
Okay.
So it's a blueprint to try and dial in. Like I tell people, you don't have to follow this exactly, because you might not like the foods I'm suggesting. Like when I started out, I was eating, I would have 2 lunches, and they were both tofurkey sausage plus broccoli, steamed broccoli and 2 tofurkey sausage. Like, a lot of fun, right?
That's like the chicken and broccoli version, the vegan version.
Well, that's exactly like reading those bodybuilding forums. I'm like, like these people eat kind of like how dogs eat, and that it's the same boring crap all the time.
Yeah.
That's how you get leaner, and I did get leaner eating like that. So
sure.
I was trying to get everything within a range where you see the dial moving in the way that you want it.
Okay. So it's to sum it up, it's kind of like an adaptable meal plan. For eating for goals. Either that's mainly to fit into a weight class in this case.
Yeah, well, to be as strong as you can be, but like if you figure out you want to do a strength sport, you're gonna have to pick a weight class.
Yeah.
Well, then I teach the principles of how you eat to be as big as you want to be.
Gotcha.
Or as small,
And do you talk about training and such too, or is it mainly nutrition?
In the second edition, I added a chapter. Well, I think in the first edition there was a chapter about training, just general thoughts, because I really think no matter what kind of exercise you want to do, unless you're doing ultra running or swimming and, the kind of stuff that you need to be skinnier, like leaner and have less muscle mass.
Yeah.
You don't want to be carrying around all the extra weight. So, that's why runners and strongmen look like chihuahuas versus pit bulls. You know what I mean? But what was the question?
Just about like the section in like you talk about
training. Yeah. So no, I put some thoughts about how this could apply to specific types of training, and all throughout the book I give the disclaimer that if you are really into endurance sports, the less likely it is you want to eat like this.
Yeah, sure.
I think it still gives people good talking points for knowing how to say, hey, if you meet somebody that's skeptical about how to be strong and muscular as a vegan, I mean, I lay it out in detail how I've done it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, but in the second edition, what I did was add a subchapter for powerlifters specifically, because that's my expertise.
Right.
And I talk about how this diet facilitated my goals as a powerlifter.
Okay.
Because
So
I don't feel qualified to tell people how to eat like this for CrossFit. Olympic weightlifting, I would say, is probably going to be pretty similar, you know, to the way we train for powerlifting in terms of you're not doing a lot of cardio.
Yeah.
Like the more cardio intensive your sport is, the less likely this is going to apply to you, or at least to the degree that you're engaging strength movements versus doing cardio, you know?
Right, basically. So it's for vegan people or people who want to eat a plant-based diet who want to be strong and have a good body composition, fit into a certain weight class, maybe involved in strength sports.
Yeah, and I do talk about what your range of body fat percentage would optimally be in these sports, you know? Have you competed in bodybuilding at all?
Bodybuilding, no. I've done like 1.5 powerlifting meets.
Oh, okay. Explain to me the half. What was the half?
I did a full power meet. I was supposed to do a second. Well, the first one I did was actually supposed to be a full power, but I ended up like my coach kind of threw a little too much volume at me. He was. I wouldn't say like it was a lot. It was a lot of intensity, a lot of high RPE stuff, and it just like really flamed up my back. I was kind of going through some back issues, and so long story short, I just couldn't do like squat and deadlift, so I just benched only.
Oh, okay.
And then I rehabbed everything. Like 3 years later, I did a full power meet. Like probably 6 months ago now.
Yeah, so, I remember seeing that. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm not great with strength. I'm kind of like tall and lanky, and I kind of like try to stay a little on the leaner side. But
well, that's why I was asking, because I remember meeting you last year at Mr. America, and I was like, oh, this dude's like lean. He's a jacked dude, you know, like you look aesthetic. You look aesthetic, bro.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, dude. It's funny because I want to be like the strong dude, but I'm just not built for it. I just gravitate more towards. I can be lean really easily.
How tall are you?
6 feet tall. You're
not too tall, man. You're just gonna have to be willing to not be as aesthetic.
I know, and like this is another thing that maybe we could kind of touch on a little bit.
Yeah.
So optimal. You kind of mentioned a little bit optimal body fats for powerlifting.
Right.
I hear a lot of different things thrown out there. I hear for like really high level stuff. Like if you're like my height, you should probably be like 242, if not heavier. I know obviously there's genetics that come into play. There's like variability from person to person, but like, what's your opinion based on weight classes? Like, is it kind of is it kind of like a height class in disguise?
No, I mean, one thing that a friend of mine and I were talking about as kind of a strength hack is to be like my height, but then get to be 200 or 220 pounds, because then your leverages are just. You're reducing the range of motion so much by being not necessarily fat, because you could still be a ball. You have to be a ball of muscle, but to get that big, you are going to have to get fatter. You know, like we could talk about bulking strategies. Obviously, I think the bear bulk method is out. Like I don't think anybody backs that anymore, but we've all done it.
Yeah,
and
the dreamer bulk.
Yeah, I mean it's something that I had to do to start to move the dial for myself, right? I got a little too carried away with it, and then I had to dial it back by like 20 pounds to be competitive. But I've heard a lot of different things. I mean, if you are, like, for example, do you know who Ed Cohn is? One of the greatest powerlifters of all time. Yeah. I mean, that dude, I was at the Arnold tabling with the PlantBuilt Vegan Strong team this past year in March, and Ed Cohn walks right by our table. The dude is shorter than me.
Really?
I mean, I think he's shrunk with age. Like, you know, he's what, like in his 60s or something. But you know, he competed at like what 181 and 198 like back in the day. I mean, he's putting up some of the most insane numbers of all time.
And he was jacked. Like,
yes,
he was not really that fat. Like based on like you know what I saw.
He was on and off PEDs back then too. I mean, but the thing
that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic. But you know, for a guy to be like 5'6" and weigh 200 pounds, that's a whole different leverage than a 5'7" and 165.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like I've heard bigger dudes scoff at me and be like, man, 165, whatever, man. If you're over 5'6", you have to at least be a 181.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people think that I'm too tall for 165.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. I go up against a lot of 5'3", 5'4", like, you know, little just like gremlins. They're strong, and and if they sumo deadlift, I'm done, because that range of motion is like 3 inches shorter than what I got to do on a deadlift.
So, quick question about that. Do you feel like, from your experiences, the smaller person in a weight class, would they usually, on average, tend to perform better?
Do you mean like leaner, smaller, or shorter? Or
like shorter.
It can be an advantage, for sure. It can be an advantage. Okay. It's not always, but
I guess I'm thinking, like, if they're shorter and they're powerlifting for a long period of time, they could technically stack on more muscle and fill out the weight class, right?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like people think that I should be a 181 proper, right? And usually most people, to be a proper competitor in a weight class, you need to weigh a little more and then do a water manipulation trick to weigh in.
Okay.
That's what most people do to be at the top of the weight class, I've never, since I've been competitive in powerlifting specifically, I've never been over 181, So like the 2 times I've done like 175 in the 181, like I was 175, And then one time
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, one time I missed weight when I went to Ireland to compete in Worlds, because I got sick, and like I couldn't sleep right in Ireland. Like I never synced up. I went a week early to try to adjust to the jet lag, and I could never sleep for more than like 3 hours at a time, and I got a cold, and I couldn't cut water when it was time to weigh in. Like my body was just not cooperating, and I missed weight by like 1.5 pounds.
Oh.
So I was 166.5 pounds in the 181s, but I still got second place. That's like just some luck on people not showing up.
So how much does your strength, your personal strength, change from, let's say, 165 to 181? Whether you water cut or not, like what's your difference there on average?
Something that's interesting is 2022, which was my best year overall, powerlifting. I put up you know about DOT scores, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for your listeners, if you don't know a DOT score, it's basically the coefficient formula that is used in most powerlifting leagues to determine who's the best by weight. So you could try to compare people in different weight classes by their DOT score, which I think there's a lot of imperfections with that, but there's no perfect way to compare people in different weight classes.
It's like the new Wilks score, right? It's
the new Wilks. It's the new Wilks score, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, like 2022, I competed at 165 in nationals in like May, and then I had 4 months before we came to New Jersey to do the PlantBuilt team at Mr. America in Atlantic City. So. We found out, I usually compete in USPA, drug tested. They do a 24-hour weigh-in. That allows me to live at like 170 to 172 pounds on average, and then I diet responsibly, and I manipulate my water weight to weigh in, and then I have 24 hours to replenish and get on the platform and do my thing. The USAPL, which was what the Mr. America meet was that October, it was you only get 2 hours to weigh in. So you can't really manipulate water that much because you don't have enough time to replenish and perform well. So you got to be pretty close to what you're going to be. So I didn't manipulate any water that time. So basically, if I go fly to wherever for nationals for USPA, I'll diet down to 168, 169, do a water cut the night before, and weigh in like right around 164, 165.
Okay.
But then when I went to do the USCAPL meet for Mr. America with the PlantBuilt team in October, I just ate casually and didn't, I knew I was going to have to gain weight because a 2-hour weigh-in, I'm not going to manipulate my weight. I did that one time when I did USAPL back in the day, and it was awful. Like I didn't hit anything after my opener. So I thought messing with my water on 2 hours is not good. So
yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, I learned the hard way that way. But I didn't manipulate my water at all, and I weighed in at 175 4 months later, right? So so if I weighed 168 in May, I gained 7 proper pounds in 4 months and some change, right? My total went up 40 pounds. I hit every lift in October. I think I went 8 for 9 in Atlanta at Nationals, and I went 9 for 9 at Mr. America, New Jersey. Difference of like 4 months in a couple weeks.
Wow.
But so I think my total at Nationals was like 1262, and then it was 1302. And 4 months later, my bench went up 11 pounds. My deadlift was like 17 pounds higher. My squat was my best squat ever in New Jersey. Went up like 17 pounds or something also. And so the strange thing was I was way stronger in a short amount of time, but my dots went down.
And that's mainly from the water cut, the difference?
It just goes to show that if you weigh less and can put up nearly as much as a guy who weighs more, your dots is going to be better.
It's going to look better.
Yeah. So, like
technically,
if you look me up on open powerlifting, my highest ranking is based on my when I was a lighter lifter.
Even though your actual total was lower, your ratio was better.
Right, ratio was better.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but you still think that you would advocate anybody who's very serious into strength training to still go through periods of higher calories, right? To gain muscle and strength.
Yeah, and this is one thing I'm learning now, and this is why I did the same thing this year. I went to do nationals in June, and I was a 165. Didn't do great, and I think this is the problem of not gaining weight over time is you're putting your body through more intensity, more repetition, but you're not allowing it to grow.
Yeah, sure.
So 2 years later, I'm the same weight, but I'm not putting up as good a number as I did in 2022 or 2023.
Yeah.
So to go compete with the team this October, which is what we're doing like 3 weeks, I'm going up to 181. And it's helping. My bench is already better than it was in the summer. My deadlift is already better than it was in the summer. My squat, I'm having some hip issues just because I'm getting old. So I'm trying to salvage that just to get through the season. Yeah. But if I wasn't gaining weight right now, I think my body would be wrecked.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of only stay at the same weight and get stronger for so long.
Yeah, man, I can totally vouch for that from my point of view too, just because like I've tried to stay lean, like too lean for my own personal build, and tried to train really hard. From my experience, you're also just more fragile. Like I feel like injuries just catch up quicker. I always find when I gain weight and like not only my numbers going up and stuff, but like my joints feel better. Like I feel just less vulnerable,
Totally. And that's how, dude, I'm on the mend right now because in part because I'm gaining weight. Yeah, you're holding more water. You're just getting more into your muscle cells. And it helps a lot, man. So, people should consider in terms of being competitive. Yeah, maybe sometimes it's good to lose some weight, be a little healthier, be a little leaner, try to be a little more athletic, have a more competitive dots. But if you start to ache, try to grow. And you're going to get fluffy, and you need to be okay with that if you want to be strong.
Yeah. The good thing about strength sports is that it's, no one really cares about how much you look as much. They care about how much you lift.
Dude, I mean, I go to this gym here in Norfolk. It's called Shark City Barbell. Shout out to those guys. I mean, they have a whole like West Side type crew. Some of the guys take PEDs, some don't. They all use like a monolift because these guys are like 260, 300 pounds, all of them.
Yeah, big boys.
They're squatting 800 pounds.
It's crazy.
There's guys there that are over 500 dots, which is like world class.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
They're not lean.
Jeez.
They're not lean guys. You know what I mean? And
like there's exceptions. There's freaks out there, but they're freaks. Like you got the John Hacks and like the Russell Orhees. Like that is crazy.
Right.
And that goes into a whole other subject of like also some of these guys who stay really lean and still perform really well, they might be on performance aids and drugs. Maybe not. Maybe they have great genetics, some of them, but it's a whole other thing. But I think for, like you kind of said, like a lot of guys who are training naturally, like you got to push your body fat a little bit,
Totally. You just got to be in that anabolic. You got to be in the green. You got to be in an anabolic mode, and you have to do that. You have to be in caloric surplus.
Yep.
And that's juxtaposed against what I'm saying about my book is where I actually learned how to maintain or build some strength as I lost some weight. And that's how you know how to, it's good to know how to dial in things that specifically. But what I learned, you can't do that forever.
Yeah.
You can do it as long as it works, then you got to change your strategy. And then try to bulk. Yeah. For me, like I always tell people, I kind of eat the same way when I'm bulking or just trying to be in the anabolic zone.
Just more of it.
I eat the same way. I just add cereal and soy milk. You know what I mean? Like
Dude,
two bowls of cereal and some soy milk, like whatever. It's going to be an extra 20, 30 grams of protein per day, but it's going to be like 600-700 calories.
I swear cereal is the secret for getting extra calories in without feeling too full.
Totally.
That's always been like one of my biggest tools, along with like pasta and smoothies, like big smoothies, because they're not very filling. At least not to me. I can drink them all day. All right, man. So I wanted to talk a little bit, if it's cool with you, about PlantBuilt, and like you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I feel like it'd be cool to get more into the details about PlantBuilt and competing with like a fully vegan team and such, if that's cool.
Yeah. No, I love these are my. I mean, geez, I'm one of the longest standing people to keep coming back. My first powerlifting meet in 2015, I saw that they were coming to Austin, Texas to do the Naturally Fit Games. And for people who don't know, PlantBuilt is the world's largest international vegan strength team. It's got sub-teams, so we've got bodybuilders, CrossFit, kettlebell sport, powerlifters. We've had Olympic weightlifters, and depending on what conventions we get on at, if they have a Olympic weightlifting competition, we'll find Olympic weightlifters. But the past 2 or 3 years, we haven't been able to find a convention that also has Olympic weightlifting. Yeah. We are a drug-free team, so no PEDs allowed to be on our team. We also now have a strongman team, who's like some really amazing strongman competitors, both guys and girls. Especially considering that these are verified drug-free athletes in one of the most drug-ridden sports.
Oh, yeah.
And last year we had men and women's first-class placers, and by a lot too.
Dude, that's amazing. And real quick, I just want to highlight the fact that vegans are like 1.5% of the whole population, maybe. Like it's low, but. We're performing on that high of a level with such a small population already. It's like a subgroup of a subgroup.
Yeah, and the amount of people who are vegans who are athletic to any kind is even much lower. So and then in the strength realm, it's a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So we've tried to keep our eyes out and reach out to the best talent we see online and through people we know. But PlantBuilt was started like in 2012 or 2013 by Giacomo Marchesi and Danny Taylor. And so they're our team founders. They basically do all the back end organizing, getting us in at festivals, making relationships with like vegan supplement sponsors and stuff for the team. They both have competed in bodybuilding, and even one year, 2017, Giacomo competed in powerlifting with us, which was really cool.
Yeah, because
he's historically a bodybuilder,
Right.
But they don't always compete. They're just like our team parents, and
Yeah.
the first year that I found out about them was they announced they were going to compete in Texas in 2015, and I heard about this in like 2014, and I had never competed. I was starting to train specifically in powerlifting. I had reached out, and they said, look, we already got our team finalized for this year, but just, come out and hang with us and compete with us. And so I did. And, it was awesome. They took me in. They even posted things about me like I was part of the team, But then I got the official invite after that to come back officially. And we only did it one more year. We did 2017. I guess, I don't know, it was complicated to try to get things organized for 2016, but we went back to Austin, Texas, and did the Naturally Fit Games in 2017, and we cleaned up that year. There was 8 of us versus it was a 90 lifter meet. We had 13 medals, all of us top 3, on the powerlifting team.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
It was some of the best synergy I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing. First of all, for activism, really, to just go. It's like putting your money where your mouth is. It's just like, dude, look at this. Like, you guys talk all this shit about how vegans can't get strong and jacked and fit. Like, look at these people who are performing at really world class levels, and it's really amazing. So you guys are fucking awesome, dude. Like, I think that is the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I mean, you get every year the team might be a little different depending on who can make it. Some people are international; it's hard for them to get there. But this year I think we have 30 to 40 competitors between all our teams, and just getting that many athletic vegans to hang out and eat and be friends and talk about training and help each other and cheer each other on, man. It's a really cool feeling. And what happens is not just the way we compete, because we get compliments on that, right? People will be like, you guys aren't just good for vegans, you guys are good. Maybe this tofu thing is something I should look into. Exactly. We heard that from like a 60-year-old firefighter last year. He was like, I've been competing in this for years, and I never seen just a bunch of vegans do this, and I was impressed, man. And we were like, thank you. That was one of the most meaningful things we heard all day. It's just someone that's so stuck in their traditions that the light bulb went off, But one of the things we hear is that, if we're not competing, we go to watch our other team competitors. Like, we go to the bodybuilding hall, or we go to the kettlebell portion of the event hall, and we just cheer people on, and everybody's like, man, these vegans made the event fun, man. You guys are just loud and proud and do it, just showing us how to have fun. So
I think people are drawn to the energy. Yeah.
We show up in mass and we represent, and whether we're cheering on or performing, people are like, wow, you guys have great energy. We think people think of vegans as low energy and annoying. People are like, man, these guys are fun. So
just
makes we try to advocate. Yeah, we try to advocate on all those levels, because we do have fun, man. It's one reason I keep going back. Like, this year I've been having hip problems, and I thought, maybe I'll do a push pull, like a bench and deadlift only, because my hips are. But I'm gonna do full power. But I just thought I signed on because I love hanging out with these people and doing what we do.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a time where you're all guaranteed to get together and be able to hang out.
Yeah,
and basically just have fun and lift weights. I mean, that's pretty fucking great.
Yeah, it's a dream, man. It's a dream. Now we have really sponsors. It's come a long way,
Yeah, I saw that. I saw at Mr. America there was a bunch of like Unisoy jerky and stuff, and
Plant Fusion.
Really good stuff. Yeah, Plant Fusion protein.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Ultima Replenisher, which is an electrolyte mix. Yeah, no, we're very fortunate. It's grown a lot, and people have taken interest and back us and help us achieve our goals. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. So what originally led you to go vegan? I mean, 20 years ago now, right?
Yeah, almost. Yeah. I went vegetarian in high school. But my mother she was my first exposure to this kind of stuff. She was a vegetarian pescatarian since she was in college before I was born.
Okay.
But when you're growing up and you think your mom eats weird stuff and your dad is like an opposite, they got divorced when I was very young because they were just not alike.
Right.
Definite case of opposites attracting. But I liked eating bacon cheeseburgers and stuff as a kid, so I kind of made fun of my mom. And it wasn't until I got into punk and hardcore when I was 14, 15. I heard bands like Earth Crisis and Propagandhi. And then I thought, oh, this is like a rebellious thing. This is cool. Like,
yeah,
there's kind of like a rebellious energy to this, and then that piqued my interest, I think. And then I thought, okay, Mom, I'll eat what you got. What do you got? And so I went vegetarian in high school, and I couldn't kick the cheese pizza until I was almost 23. But I wish I'd done that a lot sooner, because I used to have a lot of allergy problems. I used to get sinus infections all the time. And when the dairy went away, my sinus infections went away.
Yeah. That's a big one, too. It's like a lot of people have these hidden dairy allergies where they don't really know until they cut it out.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I credit the punk scene in the 90s for exposing me and pitching it in a way that appealed to me as a young, angry kid,
I mean, yeah, dude. So, like, punk and hardcore back in the 90s was, in my opinion, I thought it was so cool. Like, I was a little too young back then to really know what was going on, but I got way more into that stuff when I was in my teens and such. And just seeing the passion that they would bring into the music, it was so politically oriented with, like, the lyrics and such. And it was all about, like, just being angry about the world. And I think me being like getting into this stuff later, but being like an angsty teenager, I was like, damn, these guys are really onto something.
It was not only that, also they articulated things in a way that it wasn't just anger. It wasn't incoherent. It was often more reasonable than what you would hear on the news,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah.
And I like how even nowadays, like a lot of punk and hardcore, I would say it's kind of feels like it's a little more hardcore these days, but they still have a lot of ties to that kind of stuff. And I think there's still a big vegan movement in the hardcore scene, even nowadays. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's still one of the most normal places to be a vegan.
Yeah. Yeah. And just in general, it's very inclusive, very like LGBTQ friendly, and just, like everyone's welcome,
Yeah, it's always been a place that's supposed to be a place for the outcasts, or the place that they feel like mainstream society didn't accept them. Which, I think, fortunately, in mainstream society, we've made a lot of strides about accepting all kinds of people. Obviously not perfectly, but and granted, to be fair, there's been problems with this in the punk scene since its origins too. However, that was the place that I was first exposed to that said, "Hey, that's okay. Come be yourself here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a big inspiration for you when you were like what in your teens, I guess.
Yeah, I want to say I got my first record that I knew to be punk, which was Bad Religion's "The Gray Race." I was in 8th grade.
Nice.
And then I also heard like my first hardcore bands like Earth Crisis and Sick of It All and stuff in 8th grade, but I don't think I really got into that and understood it for about another year. So yeah, like I would have been like 14, going on 15 when I started going to those shows.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's young to be going to those shows like that. The first show I ever went to when I was 13, I saw. You ever listen to the Addicts?
Yeah, I know the Addicts. Yeah.
Yeah,
not like a band I know their catalog well, but I know that.
Yeah, that was the first show I ever went to because I grew up with being really close to my sister, and she was always really into the punk stuff. That was the first show she ever brought me to, and to this day, I'm like looking back and I'm like, dude, that's so cool. Just so cool that I was there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. There's a lot of it's funny because if you look at the origins of punk, a lot of it was a lot of just kind of nihilistic backlash.
Yeah.
To the ruling order of what if you look in Britain and you had the Sex Pistols and they were just trying to piss off the monarchy, and they would wear shirts that you shouldn't be wearing just because they were drug users and they didn't really know any better. They just wanted to piss people off, And I mean, if you look at like the Misfits, you're from New Jersey, right?
Actually, like outskirts of Philly, so
okay,
like the suburbs of Philly, basically. Bucks County, if you've ever heard of that.
Okay. I was just thinking of a band that if you look at their lyrics, they're mostly singing about horror movies and doing the most god awful things to other people, But something's liberating about it because you're not supposed to say that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what early punk was. But then by the 90s, it evolved into people who were taking courses in college about, you know, wars and the military industrial complex and persecution of queer people and things like that, you know? And they brought that to the scene and said, hey, you know,
sure,
maybe we should rethink some of this stuff.
Yeah. There was a really big anti-vivisection, like anti-animal testing movement in a lot of like lyrics for punk stuff, like anarcho-punk and like crust punk. And to be honest, like even when I was first going vegan, I wasn't really familiar with animal testing. I didn't know how bad it was. I just because it's so hidden. Like, you know, food, you understand to a degree. Like, yeah, that's an animal. I feel like you can put it together when you really break that boundary. But for me, animal testing, I never really thought about it. Like, you don't realize how much stuff is actually tested and how cruel that is. Right. So, you know, hearing all these old bands and like hearing them talk about that stuff, that was actually really enlightening to me for all the animal testing.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, a lot of the issues I've ever taken any notice to and had real concern about was a lot of times first time brought up in lyrics or a banter on stage by one of my favorite bands or something.
Yeah.
Animal testing was one of those things, and diet, and you know, all kinds of issues. Yeah.
Do you draw any of those themes into the music you play nowadays?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do think with age, the things I write lyrics about have gotten maybe a little more personal and a little more philosophical. But certainly when I was 19, 20, and I started my band Die Young, I mean, I was growing up in Texas under, you know, the home of the Bush dynasty. Yeah. And to 9/11 happened, and you know, we've got that guy saying God told him that we need to do this and that in retaliation for 9/11, and you know, there's a lot of bad things that happened to minorities in Texas when he started talking like that, and it really made me question a lot of things about religion or organized religion, and so that my band Die Young is like, we started just to talk about those things, you know.
Nice.
But you know, in and out of the band, touring through years, we had a lot of vegan, vegetarian, straight edge members, and you know, I'm obviously vegan and straight edge, but those threads have been there, you know, like we're not like single issue people, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's always sometimes more than others. You know, as an artist, you gotta just write what you really feel at the time. You shouldn't try to placate what people want. I always try to write what I'm feeling, and if I've been going through something more personal and need to look inwardly versus criticizing the rest of the world. I mean, I think as I've gotten older, I want to do that more than point fingers, you know?
Yeah. That I feel like that is pretty, it's pretty common in a lot of musicians. If you like look through their like anthology, I think you can kind of make parallels with that in a way.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. So I guess to kind of bring things back a little bit here, because we're closing on about an hour. Yep. So to circle back to your book here, for people who are interested in checking it out and such, who would you recommend would maybe be like the ideal person to kind of read this book, or maybe like, you know, who would you really kind of pitch this towards?
Definitely anybody who just is curious about plant-based food sources.
Okay.
I think the advice in the book about supplementation and protein could be applicable to anybody who's just curious about getting stronger in general. Because I'm really trying to equate macros and vitamins and minerals, to what you would be getting as an athlete eating animal-based stuff. You know, there's no loss of macros, there's no loss of calories, there's no loss of minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and all that. So, and what I discuss in the book and the way I break it down is you'll see that there's an advantage on antioxidants and fiber and things like that. So, but anyone who considers themselves like you and me used to, like a hard gainer, if you want to be vegan, if you want to get into any kind of strength sports, if you want to build any kind of muscle, I mean, I think the diet approach that I have could apply to any kind of strength-oriented training.
Okay.
And the degree to which you want to follow something like what I depict in the book is dependent on how much you're going to train like that. And then, you know, I think it's kind of good for any kind of vegan, especially like the activist-minded people who want to help others come to the side of the animals. We need to know how to talk about nutrition, because what's the main reason people say they tried being vegan, but they stopped? They felt weak. They lost too much weight. Yeah. So, you know, if we all know how to dial things in based on what people's needs are for their lifestyle, that's helpful. You know, like, for example, the main people that buy my book when I do the Veg Fest and stuff, because like 60 to 70% of people in the animal rights movement are women. The main people that buy the book are women, but they're buying it because it looks like this. It's got a really, like, you've seen the book. It's like a deadlifting rhino. He's deadlifting on a pile of bones of a vivisector, a butcher, and a hunter.
The graphics are badass. I saw your shirts right after, and I was like, dude, I need to grab one of those soon. They're awesome.
That's my friend Mark in Sweden who drew that. He's a vegan dude.
So good.
Yeah, awesome.
I love it. Real quick, I know this is a bit of a side thing, but I love those shirts you came up with because they're not like too obviously, like, I don't know, kind of like kitschy vegan stuff. They're just like, they have obvious vegan themes, but they're like badass. And I'm like, dude, I want to wear this to the gym like right now. Yeah, they're so cool.
I mean, I wanted Vegan Meathead to be something that non-vegans would be like, oh, that looks cool. Like, could I wear that? Well, you kind of need to be vegan. You gotta need to be part of the club.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to wear it, you better make the jump.
You better go vegan.
You know? Yeah, thank you. So as far as anybody who this would appeal to, I think if you just learning how to talk about nutrition, obviously in our movement in the plant-based world, there's more than enough information about how to be healthy. But for a lot of people out there, especially dudes, they don't really care about that. They want to be strong, and they want, you know, they don't want to feel like they're going to be less aggressive or less capable in the world because they did a right thing for animals. And that's what I'm saying, is a lot of people come to my table and talk to me after my speeches are women, grandmas, moms, girlfriends, wives. This is for my son. This is for my grandson, because they won't listen to me. Honestly, I guess we've needed more masculine. I'm not really trying to be that specifically. It's just I am what I am.
I agree, though. I definitely agree. I think your stuff really, like, obviously portrays that audience really well. So
so hopefully it fills a gap. But I mean, I've had plenty of women who train refer to my book and say it helped them too. Yeah. Because it's universal in terms of getting enough calories, enough protein. Right. I think maybe the balance of fat and carbohydrates could be a little different and lean more towards more carbs for women. But you still need enough fat to be able to generate the balance of sex hormones that will help you be aggressive and recover in the gym. So really, I think it could be for anybody. The only people that I would say it's not for is people that get offended by bad language.
Gotcha. Or maybe endurance runners.
Yeah, but you know, man, I mean, if they ever want to change their training and transition to another kind of fitness lifestyle, and also like be able to talk, because if you're the stereotypical skinny vegan, that's okay if that's how you want to be. But if people come at you like, oh, well, you're like that because you're vegan, they're like, if they know, no, I'm like this because this is how I train, this is how I live. But look at this, you could do this. It's not going to hold you back. Yeah. You know? So, maybe it's not for everybody, but I think there's useful information in it for almost everybody. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. You made this into an audiobook and everything. It'll reach more people too. So where can people find your book and all your other, you know, your products and such?
Yeah, the audiobook just launched on Audible. It's also on Amazon. You get my direct websites, which is veganmeathead.com and daniel-austin.com. It's important that you put the dash in there. Danielaustin.com wasn't available, so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Daniel-Austin's what I got. Cool. And it's going to be popping up I set the distribution for the audiobook to be on as many platforms as possible. So it's supposed to be on Apple. If it's not there by now, it'll be there any day. Yeah, so like your main audio streaming platforms should eventually have it. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
Cool, dude. What about on like social media or anything? Do you want to advertise that, or?
Yeah, I don't.
Kind of personal.
No, I mean, at Vegan Meathead is my Instagram. That's where I'm most active. Cool. I never. I tried to do Twitter for about 2 days, and I just thought I can't do this. I'm not gonna. I hate it.
It's X now.
Yeah, I mean, so whatever. I'm not on there, and I'm not on TikTok because I also just tried that for 2 days and thought I need another app that does the same goddamn thing. Like the Unabomber in me said no. I'm not assimilating. You know?
That's where I'm at. I can't handle any more social media. I'm already forcing myself just to post it all over the past several years. That's a whole other thing though. But
it just can eat up too much of our time, you know.
Seriously.
And then I mean I'm still on Facebook, Vegan Meathead. So
cool. All right, man. Any last things we should touch on real quick, or anything you want to say, or?
No, man. I mean, that was fun. I appreciate it. I do think we probably got into some detail there that could actually give some people. I always love having the conversations where we give people some nuggets. Like if you listen to an hour of people talking, you get like 2 things that you can implement. That could be a game changer right there.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, I think we touched on some great stuff, and everyone knows where to find your stuff now. So go find it. And Daniel, thanks so much, dude. Really appreciate you coming on. And also on a personal note, thank you for the inspiration to kick off this new season of recording.
It worked well for both of us, Sam.
Exactly, man. All right, cool. So I'll talk to you in a little bit. Thank you.
All right, my man. Thanks, dude.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ethics Approach podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you gave the podcast a follow anywhere where you're listening to this and dropping a review if you liked it. Please also feel free to check out the Ethics Approach website for additional content, including coaching services, free training programs, articles, and merch, as well as the Ethics Fitness YouTube. Feel free to also check out my personal fitness Instagram, which can be found at Tofu Strong, for updates and even more content. And of course, dropping a like, commenting, and sharing is always hugely appreciated and is a quick, easy, and free way to help me keep producing more content like this. Thank you so much again to my Ethics Fitness community. Much love, as always, and I'll see you again in the next episode soon. Peace out.